Hey folks, it's Isolation Nation. Nate Thompson today. 8 teams in the NHL playing for the Philadelphia Flyers right now with a really important story to tell. And Amanda Crew, she was on our second week. And when we wrapped it up, I said, Amanda Crew, you must come back. Well, I guess I wasn't just blowing smoke because she is back. Today is show number 41 for Isolation Nation. Now, there's a ton of shows out there, Zoom shows where you get talking heads. But how many of the shows give you the things that we give you? And how many of those shows actually have a theme song by a famous comedian?
It's a nation in isolation. It's a nation in isolation. It's a difficult situation. It's a nation in isolation. This is no time for celebration. Think you're great, I'm sure you do. You're not as great as Amanda Crew. 6 seasons on HBO in Silicon Valley, don't you know? Julie Goldenson, she's the best. She's a brilliant psychologist. But hair cutting, she's a hack. Problem in the front and a problem in the back.
Oh my God, that's her husband's hair.
That's terrible.
It's a nation in isolation. It's a difficult situation. It's a nation in isolation. The lobster is a delicious form of crustacean. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's Sean Cullen. And if you've seen this show ever before, you would have seen Sean Cullen. Actually, after about the first, I guess about 7 or 8 days, he started doing amazing things for us. And you know, I just got to say that what a gift it is for all of us. I mean, when he sends me stuff every day, and when I say me, he sends it to my email address. And when it comes in, I tell my wife and my daughter, who works on the show, Sean's stuff is here. And it's like everyone gathers around and it's like, oh my God, he's so talented. He's so likable. And Sean, you're probably not watching because you're one of those guys who probably doesn't really like to watch himself, but I freaking love you, man. You're awesome. All right, Nate Thompson. What a pleasure. How you doing, Nate Thompson? He wrote you a song, which we'll get to in a second, but you, well, in that open, you saw Julie Goldenson, the back of her husband's head. She cut his hair. It wasn't good. Has your wife attempted to cut you? Clearly not shave you, but cut your hair?
No, she hasn't. I won't let her because I don't want something like that to happen to me. So, but anyways, thanks for having me on the show, and I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Well, thank you. You're in your car, right, in California, in the Los Angeles area, and you pulled over to talk to us. So we really appreciate that. How you doing? How you doing with COVID-19? How you doing with this long break? Bring us up to date.
I'm doing good. It's been one of those things where it's kind of our normal now, right? Like the first couple months, it was a little bit odd, but I think the biggest thing for me was just trying to stay in a routine, trying to make sure that I had went about every day with like kind of a purpose, right? Because I feel like once you kind of get lost or you're not doing much or getting lazy, that's when things can go awry a little bit, for me anyway. So it's been pretty good. We've been, just following the direction and just doing our thing and staying home. But so far, so good.
So give us some history on your mental health. Take us back, and you can start the story wherever you think it's appropriate.
Yeah, so I'm about 3.5 years sober. My sobriety date is October 10th, 2016. So, I had some struggles before then, and obviously. With addiction and mental health, I feel like it can kind of go hand in hand. So for me, that was a big turning point in my life. More so my life than my hockey career. But it's funny, once you get a hold of things and really make a change in yourself, how other things kind of come to fruition for me, which it did with my career. So. It's definitely, I look at it as probably the biggest accomplishment I've made, definitely off the ice. being able to get sober. And not only that, but I think now for me, it's, doing things like this now is being helpful and helping other people that are going through struggles. And because, at the same time, when I help someone else, it helps me. So it's really been a blessing for me.
You're talking to a guy who understands that it's putting a purpose to your pain, right? You have all this shit in your life that's obviously affected your life and probably taken away a part of your life, but it's kind of like you get to pay it back because you get to talk about it and use it to make a difference in somebody else's life. So when you say October 2016, you've been sober since then. When if you could go back in time, when would you tell yourself, going back in time, to stop drinking? I don't mean like before you started drinking, because that would have been a good time to do it. But at what point in your life was it a problem?
I mean, I think it was a problem a long time ago. It was just one of those things where I thought I had it under control, but I never did. I think the progression of it is, you start younger, and obviously in the hockey culture, it's a part of the culture. You work hard, you play harder. And I think it became fun for a while, but I think as I got into probably my mid 20s, it started to affect the way I felt, relationships around me, people closest to me, I was hurting the most. And it was one of those things where I think it was, okay, I'm going to stop for 4 weeks and not drink. And then, I would go back to it and I would, burn the ground down again. So, it took for me to get to a point when, I'm happily, in my second marriage now, and I went through a tough first one. Just different things have happened. I think I'm not going to get into too much of the detail, but, it was just, I was going through a surgery at the time, a real major surgery. I tore my Achilles, and things just started to get very dark for me. And it got to a point when I was powerless, and I knew that I had to do something to change my life, or I don't know if I would have a life anymore. It got to that point probably, like I said, into my late 20s, where it really took on a whole life of its own, and I just I couldn't do it anymore. And once I got to that time, like I said, I gave you the date, 2016. I was ready to turn it over and make sure that I was taking all the necessary steps to make myself better.
And one of the things that I really, it seems weird to say this, but I love talking to people who've had addiction, is the pride that they feel, the celebration of this accomplishment in their life that sounds like no other, right? I've talked to a million guys who've won the Stanley Cup, and that's a big thrill, and that's an amazing thing. But what you've accomplished in your own mind sounds like it's well, you said it's probably your greatest accomplishment, but also to hear that for somebody who is exactly where you were when you were 25 years of age is just so inspiring.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that's the beauty of this cycle of people getting help. And like I said before, is the big part of my recovery is helping other people, because for me, even during this quarantine, I think I try to make a routine of calling other people, especially I have a lot of other sober friends that I call, and I try and call every day, because I'm not going to lie, there are times when I'm going through the day, or phases or little moments where I don't feel right, and I'm in my head, and that's the worst place to be for me. It's a dangerous place. So for me, I have to just call someone. If it could be 5-minute call, but as soon as I call that guy and I'm asking, how are you doing, I'm immediately out of my head and I'm in a better place. So I think it's a constant, every day, one day at a time, recovery that you just, like I said, I'm constantly in recovery, but I have to make sure that I'm taking contrary action to to do the necessary things to make myself feel normal, I guess you could say. But it is. I think there's a lot of other men that and other people that I've seen that have gone through a journey like this. It's very inspirational to me too.
Okay, well, this is very inspirational and quite riveting for me. I got to tell you that I almost forgot to jump in and say anything there because I'm listening to your voice and I'm thinking, this is just real life. And it's just so raw and real. And that's what makes it so effective to hear it. But, I got to lighten it up because that's where I've lived my life is, okay, someone's got to say something, at least to attempt to be a smart ass. Our guy, you heard Sean Cullen. I know you were pretty bitter when you heard him talk about Amanda, who's going to be on momentarily. You're going, where's my song? Sean Cullen for Nate Thompson. We divided it in half. So you'll hear the second half coming up, but here is the first part. Sean Cullen, roll it.
Hello there, Michael. I understand you have Nate Thompson on the show. Did you know he's a traveling man? Nate Thompson is a traveling man, doing the best he can. Nate Thompson is a traveling man. Nate Thompson is a traveling man. He played for Boston down in Beantown. He played for the Islanders, hung around. He played for people down in Tampa Bay and in Anaheim. He was a Duck, they say, and the Senators, they liked him a lot. But then the Kings put him on the spot, and then the Habs, they said, let's give him a try, and then they sent him to the Flyers. But why, oh why? Because Nate Thompson is a traveling man. Nate Thompson is a traveling man.
Nate Thompson is a traveling. Sorry, I just got so involved in it. It's pretty cool, Like I'm listening to that and it's making me smile and I can see you smile, which is, the whole purpose of trying to measure off, the serious stuff, which is life and death with something that is the reason for living, which is, the smile. So let's get back to where we were. And there's two questions that I want to ask you that came to me when you were talking. And number one was, you mentioned how tough it was after your Achilles tendon, and you mentioned how dark a place it was and how maybe you wouldn't be here if you hadn't, gone into recovery. Do you think that you suffered from depression, the illness that I've suffered from? Because if you have, then I kind of feel like I know you even better than I know you now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I was going through that time, I was doing a lot of self-isolating, and it was not healthy, and a lot of 100% I was in depression. I think I can look back on it now and I look at the patterns and the behavioral things I was doing. It was I was sticking to myself, staying in my place, not going anywhere, not wanting to do anything, couldn't get out of bed.
Let me ask you a couple of questions about what else you felt, because this is, I've kind of put this to the test with like thousands of people, and no one who's been through depression has ever said, nah, not me. Number one, the loss of the ability to feel joy, meaning not that good things don't happen to you, but you can't feel the goodness in them. Did you experience that?
Absolutely. I think that was definitely one of the things. And I think I always tell people that when I was in that dark place, it was a feeling of, I always say, I don't know if I wanted to die, but I didn't want to live. I just didn't like, I didn't love me. I was not comfortable in my own skin, which I think that's probably the reasons I had so many addiction problems, is because I just didn't want to feel. I didn't want to feel what I was feeling.
That's like when you said that, I just like kind of kind of hits me in a certain way. And the reason why it hits me like that is that I think all of us know the loss of self-esteem that comes from depression. And that's one of the other things that I was going to mention. But this voice in your head that tells you all the things that you fear the most. And it's devastating. And one of the questions that somebody would jump in with for you was, how did you continue to play in the National Hockey League through that? I mean, the game is such that, you have to have a belief in yourself to be able to step on the ice.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I look back now and sometimes I don't know how I did it. I think a lot of it was, drinking and using drugs. I think that was a big part of it, once I was away from the rink. I guess you could say hockey was an outlet for me in a way. But it is baffling sometimes that I look back and still manage to find a way to keep myself in the league while going through these dark times. And, but I guess if you look at it, I mean, there's a lot of guys that go through that. And,
Yep.
I think, like I said, I think hockey was an outlet for me, and I was able to, even at a young age, I think hockey was an outlet for me. I think I look back and maybe for sure a part of my, using was, I was never comfortable in my own skin, and even at a young age. And it was one of those things where I had to numb myself to feel like I could fit in. And that was a big part of my problem. And, but at the same time, hockey was a place for me to go, especially being on the ice where it was kind of a safe place for me. So it was actually, in a way, I think probably a savior at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. And, the value is not to other hockey players out there, but to people who are trying to continue with something that's hugely important in their life. And, my worst years, I still did a show every single day. And I'm not saying that, hey, look at me. I'm saying that it's possible to survive throughout this and to end up achieving something in your life, because the fear with the diagnosis of depression for so many and addiction that goes along with it is, I'm a loser. I'm never going to accomplish anything. And while it's a devastating thing to go through, if you fight hard enough, you are proof that, you can come out the other side and still be playing in the National Hockey League in your mid-30s and heading towards the playoffs, which you must be pumped for.
I am excited for it. I don't know when it's going to start or how it's going to look, but yeah, I mean, I think you guys seen the news the last few days.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's optimistic. I think we're a lot further than we were a month ago, and I think the league is is going in the right direction. So hopefully we will be able to play in about a month or so, and I'll be on the ice with my teammates.
Oh man, I got all these questions here that my daughter keeps handing to me, and I got Amanda who's sitting there, and I want to get to her. Let's do this. Let's play the second part of the song, also known as part 2 or the sequel, and then you hang there, and we'll bring Amanda in, and we can all talk.
Sounds great.
Let's roll it. Sean Cullen, part 2, the traveling man, Nate Thompson.
Got a suitcase in his hand. Nate Thompson is a traveling man. Oh, won't you let him stay home? Oh, won't you leave him alone? Don't call him on the phone and say, hey, do you want to come to my town? Nate Thompson is a traveling man. Oh, Nate Thompson is a traveling man. Nate Thompson is a traveling man. He's got a suitcase in his hand. There you go.
I think that song is probably a perfect definition of my career right there.
So, and you have traveled, in this year, you've traveled to 2 different places, played 63 games with the Canadians and now 7 games with the Philadelphia Flyers, which must be really weird for you because, you played 7 games. You're just, I'm sure, I mean, you have a lot of experience with going to a new city, obviously, but I'm sure there's a massive adjustment to feel comfortable with your teammates. And then all of a sudden, this ridiculous 3-month break.
Yeah, it was wild. I think in the span of 1 month, my wife and I moved 3 times. Right, we moved from Montreal to Philadelphia, and then Philadelphia back to California. So it was definitely a roller coaster. But you know, like they say, it is what it is, and you just kind of have to roll with it and deal with what comes to you.
Nate, say hi to Amanda Crew. Amanda Crew, who I met, it's like 2 months ago now on this show. 6 years on HBO's Silicon Valley. We're proud of her because of that, but also because she's Canadian and probably grew up way closer to you in Alaska than she grew up to me in Toronto. But how are you, Amanda?
I'm good. Thank you for having me back. Good to be back. It feels like 2 years ago we did that.
Oh my God. How are you doing? How are you coping? It's like, I'm sure 2 months ago when we were talking, I'm sure you couldn't even look 2 months down the road and say, I bet you I'm still going to be doing the same thing, which is, basically nothing.
Yeah, living the same life as an unemployed actor, not knowing when I'm going to work again. I feel like everyone's just joining in what the life of an actor is now, just living in a big question mark of the unknown. So welcome to the club.
Right. And how is your mental health? And give us just a very brief mental health history for you.
Yeah, before I get started, I just want to say to Nate, like, your story is so beautiful and the way that you share it is so profound. And I think especially being a male in like the sports world where like there's such toxic masculinity to kind of be tough and like, men don't have depression or addiction. Like drinking is such a part of that image too, especially in hockey. And like, I think it's so important, like what you're saying, and your story is so beautiful, and it was making me very emotional just hearing it. So thank you for sharing it because it's really powerful.
Yeah, me too as well. Like the emotion.
Thank you so much.
So what's your past that you would draw on, or that you would look back to and say, okay, well, that had a profound effect on my life and not a good thing?
Well, it's interesting. There's so many like things that Nate was saying that, I didn't struggle with alcohol addiction, but I had an eating disorder. And so there's an addiction in that. And it was definitely, there's so many parallels to what he was saying that I can relate to my journey of kind of unresolved trauma and pain that I didn't know how to cope with, and found this kind of control with food and exercise that gave me a sense of I'm on track. Like it felt like my whole life was out of control and I didn't know who I was or what I was doing, or like just had no sense of self. And so controlling the food and the working out in my body gave me this false sense of control and like a high that you get kind of addicted to, and you keep pushing it further and further, because just like when you do drugs, like the high lessens. And so you have to keep pushing it and doing it more and you think you have this thing under control, but this thing has full control over you. And there's just like one day when you wake up and realize, very sobering experience, when you realize like you are complete victim to this thing and something's got to give. But it's a very scary moment because you don't know how to exist without this thing.
So when was that, when you said, you wake up and you realize that it's controlling you? You in no way are controlling it.
Yeah, it was. So I can see the seeds of my eating disorder in my teenage years. But when I moved to LA, I'd been acting for a couple of years, but when I moved to LA, I was 20, coming from Vancouver, where people knew who I was in the industry. I had built a name for myself, and then you go to LA and no one gives an F about who you are. No one cares who you are. You're just lost in the sea of Barbie dolls and perfection. And that was when it really started to get out of hand. And so it was about 2 years that it was really kind of cycling. And I actually ended up, I went hiking and I was like running. I hadn't eaten anything. I was smoking cigarettes, which is, if you know me now, you're like, what? Just smoking cigarettes and coffee. And so on empty, and I ended up falling and I broke my knee. And that was kind of like one of like my rock bottoms, because I could no longer exercise, which was a big part of the addiction. And so I was forced to kind of just sit in it and face what my life had become. And I feel like that was also the first time I could actually physically see what I looked like, which was a very sobering experience, because I'd gotten so thin, but the body dysmorphia had hid that from me. But there was something about when I broke my knee and I could actually like see what I had become. And it was just looking at my life where I didn't even recognize who I was anymore. The people I'd surrounded myself with, the habits, the way I was showing up for my auditions, like all of it, it was just not who I was. But I'd just gotten so blinded by this obsession with control over food.
Wow. If you, I don't know 100% how to phrase this, so I'll just, we'll see where it goes. But, most people have a survival instinct in them that they value the fact that they're alive, more than anything, right? And the fear of death is overwhelming for many. I would imagine, because you are in a really good place right now, even though obviously you're not working, but just in general, you sound mentally really healthy. Did you cherish your life as much 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when you were going through this really dark period, which in your case was obviously, an eating disorder?
Yeah, I think it's such a great question. To be honest, so much of that time of my life I don't even remember, because you're so numbed out. There were times I'd be lying in bed and I couldn't even remember what I had done that day. Like, that's how much I'd numbed out. Like, it's like, I think it's Brene Brown that says that like you want to like numb out the pain, but you can't just numb out the pain. Like, you'll numb out the happiness too. Like, you can't just selectively numb things. And so at the time, clearly my actions weren't reflecting a desire and joy for living. I think in our deepest hearts, of course, we all want to be alive and cherish life, but I had been just so disconnected from myself that I didn't have a sense of that being in me.
Nate, same sort of question. If you take how much you value your existence and right now, which from everything you've described, from your marriage to your career, your sobriety obviously has led you to great places. How would you compare how you value your life today as opposed to, say, 8 years ago?
Oh, it's night and day. Completely different. I think because for me, sobriety comes first for me. That's it. If I don't put my sobriety as a top priority, nothing else will fall into place for me. That's how it works. I mean, everything goes, it falls into order. If I do what I have to do in recovery every day, things will start coming and things will start to come to fruition for me. And, it's crazy. I mean, I know it's a totally different disease that we had, Amanda and I, but I related so much to what she was saying. I think when she talked about having control of something when actually it has control of you. And the three worst words I think when I wasn't sober was I've got this. I've got this myself, which is not the case at all, because the whole time I was under its control. And sorry I went off a tangent there, but it's amazing how much I related to what you said. and just the overall, the mental part of it, how it can just pull you in and bring you into that deep dark hole.
I'm just going to warn the guys that Phil, who you would have heard in your ear, I hear a lot of voices in my ear. When I'm depressed, I hear my own voice telling me how much I suck. I hear Phil's voice now. I hear the Lord speaking in my ear, and he's speaking in Yiddish, just to let you guys know. We Jews, we had it right. He was a Jewish Lord. I don't know, speaking of a tangent, that's quite the tangent. But I guess the way I would phrase this, again, I'm searching because I've never asked these questions before. I've never asked what I just asked, and I'm going to ask something now that I'll answer from my own perspective. I understand suicide because I understand the depth of the pain that you can go through and the feeling that it's not that you don't love your family, and it's not that you don't, like in my case, that I didn't love my wife and my kids and my existence and my parents and my brother, but you're in so much pain that you go, I don't, I can't go on forever. Do you, Amanda, do you understand suicide, or does it seem totally foreign to you?
No, I definitely understand suicide. I've definitely had those dark moments where nothing makes sense anymore. And the idea of getting out of that hole seems impossible. I mean, I've been doing a lot of, these kinds of conversations in the past couple of weeks, and it's really made me reflect on the fact that, like, if you told 20-year-old me that in 12 years you're going to be so healed that you're going to be spreading a message about recovery, like, I've been like, there's no effing way, like, it's impossible. And but clearly it is possible, and especially for eating disorders, it's such a big misunderstanding. People think that, like, it's something you have to live with forever. And it's so not. And what Nate was saying too about, like, connecting with people, like, I got to a level in my recovery that I felt like, okay, like, I'm no longer in a dangerous place, but there's still this kind of looming thing over me. There's voices, like, I carry it with me. And I guess that's just what it's going to have to be like for the rest of my life. And it wasn't until I started talking about this with my friends, with publicly in interviews, and working with a nonprofit called Project Heal, like, doing events with them and sharing my story, like, that was when my healing got to this whole new level that I did not even think was available to me. And it's through that, removing the shame from it, talking about it, normalizing it, and connecting to other people who have the same experience, a lived experience, just connecting to human beings on a soul level. Like, there's something that plugs into you that reminds you of, like, you're a human being who's alive, who has a heart. So are you. It really bonds you. And so I don't know where I was going with that, but just that healing is possible. But it's a journey,
Yeah. How about you, Nate? Do you understand suicide?
Yes, absolutely. I think pre-sober Nate, going through what I went through, I definitely, I contemplated it. I thought, what would it be like, without me on this earth right now? I thought of it as I'm helping everyone, me not being around. I'm a burden to anybody, so it would be easier. I think when I decided to get help, and I had a conversation with my mom, and when I called her, I just told her I've had enough. I don't know what to do anymore. I kind of give up. And my mom had a very profound statement to me that I'll never forget, and said, Nate, I was waiting for this call. Eventually, that you were going to, want help, because I was afraid one day that I was going to have to bury my son. And that hit me harder than anything in my life has ever, and I'll never forget that. So I think now, being in recovery and being in a good place, it's a constant reminder for me that being sober is it's as easy as it's living or dying for me. And choose to live.
Oh, just such, two beautiful people talking. I've never met either one of you face to face, and just, the level of caring that you show by sharing. I was going to say sharing is caring, but that could not be more lame or cliched. So I'm just going to effing move on to the next thing. Because I know the cool kids aren't using the actual F word. Amanda's going with the effing word. So
no, I usually blast it out, but I just don't know what's allowed with your audience, so I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Same here. I feel the same way. I feel like it's every other word for me, but I'm afraid to use it.
You know what? Fuck you, Nate and Amanda. If you could just fucking toughen up a little bit, maybe we'd all be really fucking happy. This is isolation, motherfucking nation.
Well, fuck all right, you, Michael.
Nice. Oh,
all right.
God.
Now we broke the ice. We feel better now.
Woo. Okay. Well, we're going to skip. I'm talking to Phil now. Phil, we're going to skip the Julie piece, and we'll play that on Monday, because I'm so fascinated by this conversation that I don't want to eat up time with that. Let's play the chef's piece though. So we're auditioning people to be to come on and talk about recipes, but to qualify, you have to have some kind of mental health challenge, right? So we have narrowed it down to 6 people. We'll show you the 6, and then when you watch the clips, the one he's in a hat too. What I'm trying to say is he's my son. So it's Corey and okay, let's roll the tape. Here are the 6.
I'm Julia Child.
Hi, I'm Chef Recovery.
F you.
I am Chef Boyardee.
Hi, I'm the Cheesy Chef.
I'm Guy Fieri, and we're rolling out, looking for America's greatest diners, drive-ins, and dives.
Okay, well, clearly Ramsey's out, Chef Boyardee and Julia Child are dead. Guy is just too creepy, so it's down to these 2 guys answering the question, why should you be the Isolation Nation head chef?
I should be the head chef because nobody does alliterations like me. Prozac penne, anxiety Alfredo, lasagna, but not just any kind of lasagna, love-zanya.
I should be the head chef of Isolation Nation because I've been in the kitchen for 12 years. I'm a chef in recovery, and I fucking know food. Corey should be the sous chef because he knows nothing about food.
And we asked them, what recipe will they make to decide it?
I'm going to show you how to turn this into this.
The lasagna, Corey. I'm going to make chicken parm. So I'm going to beat down the chicken, bread it with some Miss Vicky's chips, make myself up some nice salsa, and toast the buns and have a good crisp to the chicken parm sandwich.
And finally, we asked them, make one last plea to the judges.
I have one secret ingredient nobody else has. Everything I make is made with love.
This should be me. I should be the chef of Isolation Nation because I got the knowledge, I got the smarts, I got the sexiness. I know food, and I'm a chef in recovery.
I got a special helper. His name's Carl.
This is Julia Child. Bon appetit.
Don't start showing your fat mouth at me.
He wants to kill you.
He looks terrified, doesn't he?
And as I told you before, that was Corey. That was his wife, Liz, so my daughter-in-law, and that was their dog, Carl, who they got, I guess, 2 weeks after we got our dog, Wrigley, from the same breeder. That's not information that you necessarily needed to go on with your day, but I thought it tied it all together really nicely. By the way, Chef Recovery lives in Kenora, Ontario. He's been in recovery for 12 years and, celebrates his sobriety in a lot of ways by cooking, by spreading his message through food, and by naming everything he does something to do with recovery. So I think I'm going with Chef Recovery over my son.
I also like that he threw F-bombs all over the place. So
Yep. We admire that too.
He keeps it real.
Okay,
I was gonna say I think it's unanimous. I'm gonna go with Chef Recovery too. He was there's no bullshit with him. You can tell.
And as he said, super sexy. I mean, there's no denying that. Yeah. Woo! Yeah. Have you heard of Kenora? I'm going to guess, Amanda, that you have not. Nate, have you heard of Kenora?
I have, yes.
It's in northwest Ontario, and it's a long way. Like, Canada is one fucking big country, man. When you think of, like, he is so far away. It's so extraordinarily big. And I just wanted to swear. Okay, I'm going to fire some questions at you guys, and these were given to us by the audience. Try to keep the answers short because there's not a lot of time. Nate, given the culture of pro sports and society in general, what gave you the courage to speak your truth?
I think just helping other people. I think knowing that it wasn't about me and it's about helping somebody else.
You know, that's a great way to put it. My buddy Peter Burgess suffered from really bad depression, and he we worked together for years, and he was just in a terrible place, and he tried all kinds of things and nothing helped him. And then he started volunteering in a soup kitchen in Toronto. And he said, you know, I got out of my own head. All of a sudden now I wasn't thinking about me. And when you said it before, you were making reference to living in your own head. I thought, wow, that's how a lot of us make reference to it. Okay, Amanda, why did you choose Los Angeles besides the acting potential, given the fact that it seems like the worst place imaginable for somebody with an eating disorder?
I did not know I had an eating disorder when I moved to LA. But it was the acting that pulled me there, and it's my dream. So even if I knew I had an eating disorder, I probably still would have done it because that was my dream.
This is from Natalie Harris, who was a guest on the show 2 days ago. She goes by the name Paramedic Nat. She was a paramedic in Barrie, Ontario, and went to the scene of a double murder. She ended up transporting one of the individuals to the hospital, and shortly after they got there, she found out that he was the murderer, and she had to look after him, and it just crippled her with PTSD, suicide attempts, addiction. She's such I love her because of her candor and because she's awesome and she's amazing and she has great tattoos. So Natalie asks you this, Nate. Does Nate find that fears/resentments are a huge link to his addiction?
100%. I think for me, if I'm living in anger, it's usually because of fear, and a lot of that can stem from resentment. So I have to make sure that every day I'm making living amends, because if I'm not, I'm living in resentment, and that can be a dangerous thing for me.
This is for you, Amanda. Obviously, I watched you on Silicon Valley. I think you're extremely beautiful and lovely, and it seemed to me like you were slim, but not overly slim.
Is that a question?
Okay, let me change the inflection.
That's a statement.
Yeah, I guess the question would have been, are you in a good place now with your weight?
Yeah, I am definitely. I've been recovered for probably 8 years now. But I do think, that is like another big misunderstanding about eating disorders is that your size and your weight is a marker of an eating disorder. And most people actually who have eating disorders aren't underweight. That's how it manifested on me. I have a smaller frame, but like a lot of people fall through the cracks of the system, unfortunately, because they don't appear to have an eating disorder, but they're mentally engaging in terrible behaviors that are keeping them in that addiction. Yes, I'm healthy. Thank you.
Here's a question from an M. Landsberg in Toronto, Ontario. Hey, Amanda, I know you have a boyfriend from Yellowknife. Nate Thompson is undeniably hugely attractive. Will you ask your boyfriend to knock a tooth out and grow a beard like that?
Fun fact, my boyfriend used to have a gap between his tooth that he got filled, and I get mad at him all the time because I didn't get to be with him when he had that little cute gap.
Fun fact, my dad, 89 years old, Ron Landsberg, was an orthodontist. And bizarre that my dad, the orthodontist, had a space between his teeth that he never fixed.
I love a little gap.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's cool. If I had one, I wouldn't get it fixed.
Yeah, I mean, in Hollywood, a lot of women, I'm sure, got it filled or the teeth fixed, and then realized, fuck it, I'm going to leave it because it's part of who I am, and that's why my dad had such. Yes.
If you watch a movie I'm in called Charlie St. Cloud, they made me wear fake teeth, so you can see that I have different teeth in that movie than I do in real life because they thought my teeth were disgusting. So check it out.
I actually have, and I mean, I knew that you were in it, and I'll come back to that. Nate, give us a fun fact.
A fun fact? Oh, man. A fun fact of just anything?
Yeah, I mean, Amanda used fun fact about, her teeth, and her boyfriend had a space between his teeth. And my fun fact was my dad was actually an orthodontist, and he had a space between his teeth.
So I guess we're staying on the teeth topic. I used to, I wore braces as a kid, and I legitimately look back now and I wasted all my parents' money on braces because my teeth are horrendous now, and I'm going to have to get new ones when I'm done. So I guess there's that fun fact for you.
Okay, Phil, go to a close-up of Nate. Lean into the camera, Nate, and give us like the smile so we can actually see. Yeah,
I hope there's nothing in my teeth right now.
Yeah, well...
they're not the whitest.
Yeah, there's a huge piece of spinach right here.
Oh yeah, right in the middle. Yeah. I'm just saving it for later,
Yeah, just to confirm, because I'm not argumentative, but yeah, those teeth are terrible. It's funny
it's my thing. It's my thing. It's I get a lot of compliments about my missing teeth, so maybe
Your signature.
It's my signature. That's right.
When my mom passed away about a year and a half ago, and she and my dad adored me and watched everything I did. Like I did a television show basically every day of my adult life, and they watched every single one. And one day my mom called me afterwards and said, I think you had lettuce on your tooth. And I said, Mom, no. Actually, my tooth got crowded. My teeth got crowded because my dad put an arch in to hold them in place, right? And the arch fell out. I didn't get it replaced, and my teeth got crowded. So there's like this little shadow on my teeth. And my mom called. I said, Mom, God, no, I didn't have lettuce on my teeth. It's your stupid husband who my dad, didn't do a good enough job. Any other fun facts?
I don't know. I mean, no one would know this. My mom and her side of the family is all from Trinidad. That's a fun fact, right?
Really?
That is a fun fact.
Yeah.
So is your mom dark-skinned?
No, I mean olive skin, but no, she's not dark skinned. No, but her my grandmother, her mom is from Barbados. So yeah, they're all islanders.
And then she lived in Alaska?
Yeah, then she lived in Alaska because my grandfather was in the oil business, so they moved around. They moved up there.
So can you imagine going from Trinidad to Alaska? That's quite. First of all, it's quite the journey, and second of all, it's quite the shock for sure. Oh my gosh, this is really so much fun. Just so like amazing for me. I know I'm kind of glowing, but I don't know, 10 years ago when I mean, you would know the guy actually, Stéphane Richer.
Yep.
I interviewed Stéphane Richer on Off the Record, and I had never spoken about my struggles with mental illness, but I was coming off the worst year of my life. And I knew that Stéphane, this hockey player, had suffered from depression in the 90s. And I asked him, I said, by the way, would it be okay if I asked you how you're doing? I said this before the show. And he said, it's very painful for me. So I said to him, if you'll talk about it, I'll talk about it. And he said, what do you mean? And I told him my story, and he said, okay, let's do it. And we went on the air and we talked for maybe 90 seconds, and that changed my life. And that's why when I listen to the two of you, the three of us having this conversation, and I hear the significance and the emotion in your voices, it just makes me really emotional to realize, I'm kind of doing what I want to do in my life. And I'm surrounded. My wife is over there. My daughter is there. You saw my son. And, sometimes the worst thing in your life, which for me was depression, becomes one of the best things in your life. And I'm sure we all kind of feel that way. So thanks for making this really special for me, Nate. Pleasure. I don't think we'd ever met before, and it's a pleasure. You're what we in the Jewish religion would call a mensch. It's a compliment. It's like the nicest thing you can say about somebody. It means that you're a good deed doer. And Amanda, thank you. Thanks for sharing all of this. Thanks for entertaining us for 6 years on Silicon Valley, and thanks for being my friend now. So we'll talk again soon. I don't know what the female version is of mensch. You know what? Fuck you, Amanda.
Actually, another fun fact, Michael, I didn't tell you, I converted to Judaism before I got married to my now wife, Sydney Kaplan. So I am Jewish now. My name is Natan in Hebrew.
That is awesome. What a fun fact that was.
I'm part of the tribe, just like you.
You know what we should do? So did you have a Jewish wedding?
We had a full Jewish wedding.
So you did the hora?
I did everything, yep.
And were you up on the chair?
I was up on the chair, yeah, waving the towel, everything. Yeah, we did the whole deal. It was awesome. It was the most fun wedding I've ever been to. It will be the most fun wedding I've ever been to.
That's so cool, Natan. Yeah. Thank you.
Natan, yep.
Did you just correct me?
No. You were right. You were right, Natan. That's it.
How long have you been a Jew for?
Well, since we were married, which is almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, real fucking nice. You're telling this guy, lifetime Jew, about that? I don't think so, Natan. Thanks, guys. Thank you. I'm going to obviously reach out to both of you and just tell you how much I enjoyed this and how much I admire you both. Be well, stay healthy, and we'll do this again on Monday. It's Isolation Nation, and for all of us who work on the show, it's a real joy. Thanks for doing this. Roll it, Phil.